In this tutorial, we'll learn how to design your website homepage, primarily using the Content Templates feature. So this allows you to create detailed web page content without having to write HTML code. For more information on adjusting your homepage banner via HTML, you can look at one of our slightly older tutorial videos. That's BG005, which is called Editing Your Homepage Banner via HTML. So what we can see on the screen at the moment is our default homepage. So this contains a slider along with several sample sections containing various different styled imagery and text. So our task during the course of this tutorial will be to understand, modify, and further design our homepage. And what we're going to do to begin with is to locate the editable content blocks which control our homepage content. So I'm going to go to the admin section of our website. I'm then going to go to content management and editable content. From here, we can navigate to section 2, which is all to do with the home page. Now, the homepage section contains 3 editable content blocks that you can see here, each controlling elements within different areas of our homepage. So we've got the second one down is the homepage banner. This is the main banner content at the top of your homepage, excluding the header, of course. In our default configuration, this contains a slider and a simple 4-column content section. So as it stands on our default page, our homepage banner is our slider and this section here. Also on here, we have 2 entries which are to do with the mid-page content. So you see there's above and below the mid-page content. So what is the mid-page content? So the mid-page can be considered as the location where featured products will appear on your homepage. Now, that's something we've not covered so far in this series of tutorials, but will be covered in a future tutorial. However, just for context, above mid-page content, we'll insert content above those featured products. And then below mid-page content, we'll do as the name suggests and put new content blocks below those featured products. It's worth noting that multiple elements can be applied to both above and below the mid-page content. So what we'll do first is to modify our homepage banner editable content block. So I'm just going to go to the right-hand side and click Edit next to the homepage banner. So we'll be presented with something like this, which is very similar to what we saw in the previous tutorial on modifying your header. So by default, the specification type for your homepage banner will use Content Template Editor. And we'll talk more about those in a moment. However, you are able to select other input styles, namely the Rich Editor and the Code Mirror Editor. So the Rich Editor, best to think of this as kind of a word processor style input. So you've got direct content formatting options, such as making things bold, aligning things, adding links, pasting pictures, that kind of thing. It's not generally going to be suitable for something quite complex, such as the banner, but may be more suitable for something like general page content. And then we have the Code Mirror Editor. So this is a code editor where HTML code can be directly input into Infigo. So this option may appeal to those with HTML coding experience and can give you greater control over the design and functionality of your content blocks, in this case, our banner. In our example, though, we're going to remain on our content template editors. So the content template functionality eliminates the need for any HTML knowledge by replacing the standard code mirror editor with a series of simple inputs and controls to create the content that works for you. So this functionality is constantly being improved meaning the layout of the controls may differ slightly from what you can see in this video guide. However, the general methodology should remain the same. So what we're going to do first is to choose a content template style. And depending on what you're trying to build, dictates the one that you're going to choose from this list. So you'll see that we've got some pre-configured examples for footer, content, builder, and header. Each will provide their own range of available content formats. In our example, we're going to remain on the currently selected one, which is the builder template, which is kind of more of a general template for making the format that you want. Do note that the asterisk on the end of the template names relates to default and supported templates. So if I leave that on Builder and move down a little bit further, we're now looking at sections. So we build up the content of our templates within the sections area. Each template can contain numerous different sections, with each section capable of containing completely different content from one another. So for example, we can see in our default configuration that we have two sections. We have a slider. So this, as we saw on our actual web page, that's the scrollable banner images at the top of our homepage. It's fully configurable. It can contain text, imagery, buttons, and much, much more. And then underneath that, we have something called sections, and this one is a 4-column section. So this is more of a generic section within our homepage, specifically created with 4 columns in this case. Sections can also be made with 1, 2, or 3 columns. And again, these sections can contain imagery, text, links, loads of different things, and are fully configurable. So we're going to begin by reviewing the configuration of our slider. And much of the content added to our templates will have their own separate configuration options. And where these configuration options are available, you'll have these little gear icons appearing. So you'll see that our sections have their own individual settings on a per section basis. We'll start off by configuring the slider. That brings up this separate page here. So the slider is hugely configurable, with many of the general settings governing all of the slides contained within the slider configuration pop-up that we can see here. So settings that you might see within this screen include things like animation controls. So you can see how the slides move from one to the next, transition from one to the next. You can specify whether the moving on of the slides is automated, how fast the animation is, the changing speed. As well as this, you can put the control types as well. So you can define whether you've got bullet controls, so whether you can jump to a specific slide, or whether you've got arrow controls to the left and right of those slides. So it's quite configurable. And just to show you what these actually relate to, of course, we've got automatic transitions are fairly straightforward, but you'll see how that automatically moved from one to the next. We've got our bullet transitions where we can jump from one to the next, and we've got our arrows. Once we're happy with that configuration, we click OK. And now we want to actually jump into the contents of our slider. So I'm going to click on Expand within the slider section. So each of the slides that we have specified will have its own slide specification. So this operates in much the same way as the main slider section that we had detailed just a moment ago. So they have their own individual settings, which will differ slightly from the main section. And again, we can custom define the content that's within each of these slides. So we could modify or delete the existing slides, but we'll leave those for now. What we'll do is just add a brand new slide to our slider with this Add New Slide button. To begin adding content to our new slide, we just click on the Add Content button, which appears to the bottom right. And then we select a slide layout that we wish to add. So this is where you see the differences between the slide types that we have available. So we've got 1 column, 2, 3, or 4 column, custom column, or this 2-column image and content layout, which is the one that we're going to use. So these options just control how the information is laid out on your slide. Again, they're fully configurable once you've selected an option here. It is just to give you a general layout for the content, but you're still controlling what that content is. So we'll go for 2-column image and content. The appropriate slide layout details will then be added to your slide. The first thing we're going to do is to upload an image to our slide layout. We can do this by clicking the image upload to the left-hand side. And I'll select an appropriate image. Now, in my example, I'm going to select a white logo. So you won't see it in the actual upload box just because it's the same color as the backdrop, but it is there. And there is a reason I've done that, which I'll come back to a little bit later on. So once that image has been uploaded, you'll notice that you have the ability to download it if you wish to do so. You can upload an alternative image, or you can remove the image completely. Now, the reason I've put a white logo in there, or a white image in there, is that I want to control the background color of our slide. And I want it to be a dark background color to match the color scheme of my site. So options like this, such as the background color, will be controlled by the general slide configuration settings. So if we're applying a background color to a slide, that's going to apply to everything that's on that slide. So it makes sense that it's on the actual slide level rather than the slide layout levels. So if I go to the configuration settings on my actual slide itself, there's loads of options available here. A couple of which we want to focus on is the background color, which I'm just going to set to primary, which will use the colors that we've specified in our appearance settings, which is covered in a different tutorial. So that will just be our pre-configured branding colors. And in our case, I don't want an image in the background of the slide, although you can upload one. You can configure where it sits, what size it is, how it scales that image if necessary, various other settings associated with that. In our case, we don't want to have a background image, so I'm just going to change that to no. With that specified, I can click OK. And now we want to start adding content to our second content column. So we've defined an image, we've defined the background color. Now it's our content over on the right-hand side. And again, we can control multiple or add multiple different blocks to these this content area. So it doesn't just have to be one paragraph or one image. We can add multiple different elements to this content area. So the things you can add, I won't go through all of them, but it includes just things like a title, a subtitle, a paragraph, which is allowing you the word processor style content formatting, WYSIWYG, which allows enhanced word processor style content formatting, including things like table generation and more advanced features than just the paragraph input. Buttons, so clickable links, clickable buttons where you can define the URL, images, lists, other files, and so on and so forth. We're going to just focus on a couple of these. So we'll do a title first of all. If I click title, the appropriate fields will appear within that particular content block where I can enter my title text. Now, it's worth noting that you can still utilize tokens in here. So we have discussed tokens in previous tutorials. It's where you can draw information directly from other Infigo settings rather than having to hard code information. So for example, I might want to consider putting the name of my customer on this slide welcome, just to give a more personal touch. So if I know the name of the token, I can write it straight in here. Alternatively, I can find them at the bottom of my page. So I might go, for example, for customer.fullname, and I can just put that straight into my title block. So next I'm going to add another content area, and that's going to be a paragraph this time. You'll see there that I've got my different formatting options, as you might expect for some word processor. You've got things such as special characters, you've got the ability to put links and images in there, but it is fairly rudimentary. So best for just general content that you need to display, not any special formatting that you might need on the average website. So I'm going to put some text into here. And then we could format that as we see fit, of course. And we do have some additional settings in here as well. So for each of these content blocks that we have added here, you'll notice that they again have their own individual settings. And if I go into configure those, we can see that we've got things such as the style, we've got alignment information, and we've got color information in there as well. Now we want to make sure that we can see this text on our dark background that we've specified. So I'm just going to change the color of that text to white on both my paragraph and my title. And then just to round this off, I'm going to add a third piece of content to this slide, which is going to be a button. Now this is a buttons content block. It does give you the ability to add multiple buttons within the one content block. But in our case, we'll just do one as an example. I can say add new button. Then I can put in some button text, such as find out more. So that's actually what will appear on our storefront as the button text. We can then specify the target URL. So if you know what the target URL is, you can just paste it directly into the link down here. Alternatively, if you need to find it, then you can go on this target URL drop down here, and then you can start to navigate towards the link you want to create. So for example, our find out more button might link to a pre-existing content page called About Us. Now, content pages haven't been covered yet in the series, but will be done in the future. This is just as an example. So content pages are additional pages, things like contact us, about us, terms and conditions, all that kind of stuff. There is a few pre-configured ones. So if I go to all content pages, it comes up with a search box over on the right-hand side. And if I start typing in here, it will only show me relevant entries. So for example, if I start typing about, the only available option is about us because it's only searching for the available content pages. And I could search between products I've made, categories I've made, blog entries I've made, and just link directly to them. And of course, all of these will be covered in later tutorials. So if I select an entry, you'll see that the URL is populated. Now we might also want to apply some custom styling to one of our buttons. So the button we've just made, if I go to its configuration settings, I've got a button size and I've got a button style where I can control how that button is going to appear. Now at the moment it's using primary, which suggests that it's going to be using our primary color, which as that's the same as our slide background, it means it will not appear. So maybe in this case, I'll go for secondary. So with all of that specified, let's save that and go and take a look on our storefront to see what impact that extra slide has had and how it actually is configured. You can see now I've got my logo on the left-hand side. I've got my title. We've got our body of text. And we've got our button, which has an active link taking us to another page. Okay, so next we're going to take a closer look at the second section within the banner editable content block. So this is the section which controls the 4-column content directly below our homepage slider. So each of these columns contains an image, a header, a subheader, and some paragraph information. And the content of each of these is fully customizable, as you would expect. So I'm going to navigate back to our homepage banner editable content block. And this time we're going to focus on the 4 columns section, which we have defined. So if I expand that section, you'll see there I've got one available layout, which is 4-column. So I can expand that again. And then you can see there's different sections for each of those 4 columns. And we've got full control over what is contained within each of those columns. So, for example, let's say our second entry didn't need a paragraph. I could get rid of that section completely. Or I could add a different section in there. So let's say it needed a button instead. The interface for a button is the same as we saw previously. So I'll just select a link for us. And then we'll take a quick look at what those modifications have done. So obviously the formatting is not great because of those changes that I've made. It's very quick to do so, but you can see that the layout is now updated based on what I've asked for. So we've got our button instead of a paragraph, which takes us to a particular page. Alternatively, you may want to get rid of sections completely. You may not need all of the pre-configured options that we have on here, or you may want them configured completely differently. And this is possible as well. So if I go back to our 4-column section, you'll see we've got all that detail which we've just covered, but I could get rid of that complete section from our page just by getting rid of the top level section, so the 4-column section, and that will remove everything that's contained within it. So if I remove that, so you see there's only the slider section still remaining. Save and refresh our storefront. And you see now that that section has completely disappeared, meaning that the next section has now been moved upwards. And of course, now that the colours are a little bit mismatching, you maybe want those to be different colours for different sections. As we've seen in previous settings, we could use a similar methodology to control the background colour of that selection. Okay, so just as an example, we've also got the other 2 content blocks within the homepage section. So we'll leave our homepage banner there. If I go back to editable content, and as a reminder, we've got the homepage above mid-page content and homepage below mid-page content. So again, just a reminder of what the mid-page content is. That is where the featured products will appear. And we haven't covered featured products yet. That will be in a future tutorial. That's just a reference for you. But anything in the above section will appear above it. Anything in the below section will appear below it. But those are controlled, so the content of those is controlled in exactly the same way as the homepage banner. So let's say, for example, we wanted to remove this section here. So this is surplus to requirements now. It's not part of our main banner because we've already been adjusting that one. It's part of our above mid-page section. So if I go into edit our above mid-page section content block, you can see within here we have a 2-column content layout and a 3-column content layout. So this will be our 2-column and our 3-column. Let's say we want to just change the background color of this one and completely remove this one. So if I go and find the 2-column content, go to configure, find the background color, and edit it to something relevant to my selection. And then I want to completely remove the 3-column section. I'll save that and refresh our homepage. And you can see there the changes we've made. So the section is still there, but the background color is now altered. Of course, we would need to make further changes to the text color and a knock-on effect on the rest of the page, but you can see what kind of functionality that provides to you. And that is basically it on customizing your homepage. So with this knowledge, you should be able to fully customize the homepage as you see fit. The content template functionality is very extensive. I've only covered the core principles in this particular tutorial. If you do want to use this and make full use of this, it is recommended that you experiment with these capabilities to get a well-rounded feel for their abilities and so that you can get the very best out of the Infigo software and what we offer.